Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Natali Aguilar, and I was an intern at Paragon Services summer for the pollution prevention internship. On the agenda, we'll just be talking about Paragon Services, and then for confidentiality reasons, we won't be able to talk about Paragon Services process itself, but we will talk about the metal finishing process in general. And then we'll go into the 5 different projects I had at Paragon Services, which consisted of a lighting replacement, limiting lighting, air leak audits, hazardous waste reduction, and a steam boiler replacement. So Paragon Services is a small family-owned metal finishing company. It was founded by Larry Elliott, who was the grandfather of the current president, Dusty Elliott. Their services consist of non-destructive examination, chemical processing, paint application, and other different processes. They receive a variety of different orders from different companies. So a lot of the processes that the orders they get are very different. They use different paints, they go through different steps, and sometimes they may go to the same step multiple times, depending on what the company wants Paragon Services to do for them. So metal finishing is just the process of applying a metal coating onto metal parts. It also involves cleaning and improving the surface of the part, just so the paint will be able to be applied easier and stick. Often parts are anodized or allodyzed, and anodizing is an electrical chemical process that involves enhancing durability and corrosion resistance, as well as making the surface non-conducting. And so then allodyning is also a chemical process that enhances the durability and corrosion resistance of a part, and it also acts as a primer for paint. So Paragon Services doesn't really have any sustainability goals, but they do have high utilities, and that's something that they wanted an intern to work on. So my main outcomes of the projects were reducing the amount of energy and gas used, as well as reducing the amount of hazardous waste produced at Paragon Services. So for my lighting replacement, Paragon Services has fluorescent lighting throughout one of their main facilities. They recently built a new facility, and that one has LED lighting, but the main one has fluorescent lighting, and it uses electrical ballast. And so electrical ballast adds on to the amount of wattage being used by each fixture, which adds on to the amount of kilowatt hours being used in each room. The operation hours are 5 a.m. to 2 a.m., which is almost 24/7, Monday through Friday, and Monday through Thursday. And then on weekends, Friday through Sunday, it's open from 5 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And so they have consistent long operating hours, meaning that their energy usage with the lighting is pretty high. And so in order to decrease that, I looked at using different LED lighting. And so since they have different tasks in different areas, the amount of lumens required in each area is different, because employees need a certain amount of foot candles to be able to do their tasks properly and safely. And so I found 6 different fixtures for them to replace the lighting with, just so that the amount of lumens stay consistent and the employees have no issue working on their task. And so by replacing the LED lights, then 92,518 kilowatts would be saved, and it cut the cost of the energy by half. And so the advantages of LED lamps, according to Mount Lighting, is that one LED lamp on average lasts as long as 5 fluorescent bulbs. So that would decrease the maintenance technician having to change out the LED fluorescent bulbs often, and allow him to shift his task onto something else. LED lights are 80% more efficient, 95% of them are used on the lighting, and only 5% is wasted on heat. LED lamps produce more long-lasting lumens than fluorescent bulbs, meaning that when you purchase a fluorescent bulb, then the amount of lumens they say end up decreasing a long time, and the amount of lumens you get from LED lights lasts longer. It also doesn't affect the employees like fluorescent bulbs do, because once they start decreasing on the amount of lumens, the employees have a harder time seeing what they're trying to inspect and everything, which have been comments that I've been getting before. So I just wanted to add that to let you guys know the advantages of changing fluorescents to LED lamps. And so for another project, I worked on limiting lighting. While being at Paragon Services, I found that a lot of the rooms are left with lights on while there's no one in them. And so I use an occupancy data logger, which tracks the activity in a room, and it tracks if lights are on or off. And so using that, I was able to see how many times the rooms are left unattended with the lights on. I was only able to put them in some of the rooms just to make sure that there were no data logger disappearances. I didn't put them in common areas, and I didn't put them in the men's restroom, but I did include that into my presentation because from verbal statements of employees, the men's restroom is never turned off. And so I assumed that the girls' restroom was being used as often as the men's restroom. And I was able to calculate the data on that. And so by using that, I recommended a motion sensor light switch, which would turn on the lights once there's activity in the room. And after a certain amount of time, when someone leaves, they would turn off by themselves. And that would save the energy. It just prevents accidents from happening. I remember on a Monday, I went in and the lights were on in that morning. And I was the first one to arrive. So I was wondering how long the lights were on, just because it can happen. And so by changing the motion to motion sensor light switches, 12,671 kilowatt hours would be saved, avoiding the 12.28 metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions. And then I did an air leak audit using the Ultra Probe 9000, which helps identify air leaks. I went around the facility. Paragon Services uses compressed air all around the facility. So there'll be like some really high hoses or some really low ones. Some of the employees were able to hear and point out some that they knew about. But other ones I did have to get pretty high up there to be able to see if there were any air leaks up there. I was able to find a total of 10 air leaks, which amounted to 47,733 kilowatt hours being used up by them. And air leaks aren't something you end one time and then it goes away. Since you're constantly using them, valves start glitching and hoses get punctured by different things. So I recommended just having an Ultra Pro 9000 and making a yearly maintenance plan on that, just so they're able to identify them and fix them. And then I worked on a hazardous waste reduction. So the different processes at Paragon Services have a different amount of orders, but the last step is always the same. And that last step creates a lot of hazardous waste. So the main objective of following each of the processes was to identify why that last step was needed. And I found that painting was one of the main issues, but Paragon Services was one step ahead of me and they're already planning on sending their painters out to a training. So I didn't look much into that since they're already focusing on that, but I did look into the materials they were using because again, the mantra, change the materials technology or the process. And so I recommended dual cartridges to prevent the amount of materials used, just because the current materials that they're using are disposed of hourly since paint expires, and dual component cartridges would be able to be reusable. And I also recommended an ultrasonic cleaner because some of the tools they use with their parts end up contaminating the parts. And so then they have to make corrections, and an ultrasonic would help prevent that contamination. And adding those, it could potentially save 69 gallons of waste a year. And so here's a picture of the two. So the way dual component cartridges work is they hold two liquid substances, and when you dispense them, they mix them two together. With ultrasonic cleaners, they use sound waves transmitted through a liquid. And so after some investigation, I found that SkyClean 1000 and Enviro's glass and surface cleaner would work with the material that they're using, just to clean the parts and make sure that there's no contamination. And then my last project was the steam boiler replacement. So Paragon Services currently has a steam boiler that heats up 3 of their processing tanks. And the amount of energy they're using and the amount of gas they were using was investigated, as well as the steam produced by that steam boiler. And the way I found the amount of gas, I took 3 different approaches. I looked at the utility gas meter, I looked at their bills, and I also looked at an estimation that my supervisor Dusty provided me. But I went ahead and I used the estimation Dusty provided just because steam boilers have an input capacity rating, And so you have to at least meet the minimum of that in order for the boiler to function properly. And the two other answers weren't meeting that minimum. So I went ahead and used Dusty's. And for the energy, I found the amounts of amps and volts by using a volt and amp meter. And for the steam boiler, I tried using a flow meter to see the amount of gallons that was being pumped into that boiler. And assuming that the amount of gallons pumped into that boiler was being converted to steam, it would just be a simple conversion to see how much steam it's producing. But unfortunately, this flow meter was not giving any readings. And so I went ahead and I went with a estimation that Dusty provided, and I used that to convert it into the amount of steam being produced. And so after finding that the boiler was not efficient, I recommended a Bryan electric boiler that has a lower capacity, because the boiler that they have right now is a really high capacity boiler, and the amount of steam they're requiring is very little. So I recommended the BE30, which was found to be more efficient with Paragon's needs. And the boiler would use no gas, but it would use more energy. But ultimately it would save Paragon Services money. And so there is my summary. Overall, all the projects came out to be 495 metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions, and Paragon Services savings would be 24,000. You guys have any questions?
Yeah, great job, Natalie. Really great job. This was Paragon's first time having an intern too, and they're a little smaller business. So, I hadn't seen the ultrasonic as an option before, and I didn't know if you could, and I'm sorry if I missed it, but tell me, it was for cleaning the parts, obviously.
The tools used to transport parts.
Okay, so before they were using
Nothing. So they weren't cleaning the parts, and it would just be caked up with paint. And so those chips will eventually like attach onto parts and everything.
Okay, so it ended up cleaning the tools, which reduced contamination, and then eventual rework of the parts.
Yes.
Wow, okay, that's great. That's great. I had not seen that before. And then on the flow meter, was that the PPI flow meter?
Yeah, I tried using it. I'm not sure if it's because of the tube size. The tube is very like tiny, so I'm not sure if the sensors were able to
Okay.
get that data.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm sure these guys know about that. It's a fairly new piece of equipment. So of course I'm thinking warranty if it's not working right.
Yeah.
But, and it was very expensive.
I know Cooper used it, so maybe it worked out for him.
Okay, good. Okay, we'll check on that. Thank you. I just didn't know about that. Yes.
I'm a long time educator. What have you learned?
So being at Paragon was really cool. Dusty let me go along the process, and as an industrial engineer, processes are very important. So I was able to make a flow chart of all their different processes, which are many. So it was really cool to see. And Dusty was very open and let me see a lot of information that I don't think I would be able to see other places. So I was just thankful for him to give me like such an insight on aerospace. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I appreciated with your Air Leak one that you had a long-term checking process that you put in place instead of just a one-time checking.
Yeah.
I thought that was smart.
Yeah, they have a maintenance technician that they recently hired. So I feel like on his downtime, that could be something that he could do, which wouldn't cost Paragon any money, since he's not going out of his way to do that. Yeah.
So, out of all the projects that you've done this summer, so were all of them, with some of these projects, something that you identified yourself? Or was it something that you identified with Paragon? Or did you find some initiatives just walking around with the floor? How was that?
So Dusty let me know about the steam boiler, but besides that, he just said the facility, you can just take a look and see what you find. So that's what I did.
And which project did you like the most?
I like the hazardous waste reduction project just because I was able to collect a lot of data and see which different paints they're using and the process, as well as what materials they're using and why, and getting employee insights on the different techniques that they think would be more efficient.
And why were they supposed to be cleaning the equipment?
I'm not sure. It's just something, if I were to ask someone there, I believe they would say, oh yeah, we do clean them, like, but it's like every once in a while when they get to it. So it's like, how often are you really cleaning them though? Yeah, so that was one of the things. I know one of their methods is like getting an axe and just like hacking at the paint. Yeah, because it's pretty thick, so. Yeah.
And so how did you find the ultrasonic? Like, was that just your research? Did you use EPA's database or?
I actually have never heard of an ultrasonic cleaner, but Jacob pointed it out to me. So I looked into it and then I went on to Turi to find the different liquids that could remove the paint. A lot of the different chemicals that they have up there have projects for like reports, and so they'll show pictures of like the paint stripping on the reports and everything. So I like looked into that.
Yeah.
Do you remember what type of like solvent you recommended based on the Tory?
It was the Sky Clean 1000 and the Enviroglass M surface cleaner. And so then I reached out to them and I talked to their chemical specialists, and they told me that it should be able to remove paint. Yeah.
So those product names that you recommended, they're solvents, not the names of the ultrasonic cleaner.
Yeah, they're sulfate. Yeah.